All right, here we go, folks. Hello, Internet, and welcome once again to the Smorgasboard podcast, a podcast of four friends who are going to just kind of talk about whatever we really feel like talking about from week to week. I'm your host, Parker, here with Josh, Julia, and Chris, and this week we're going to be talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe returning in the form of Wandavision to Disney+, and we're also going to be going over some of the new shows that are going to be coming out, some that we know quite a bit about, and some that are a little bit of a mystery. So hopefully we'll talk about something interesting today. So, right off the top, WandaVision premiered Friday with 2 episodes, and what a 2 episodes they were. So, right out the gate, WandaVision is just bizarre, but bizarre in a good way for, like, Marvel, because it was just this, like, Leave It to Beaver, Bewitched, like 40s style, like TV, black and white, and it was a lot like they pretty much just kind of went to like TV land and like pulled every idea that they possibly could from like old school television shows, and I thought it was a lot better than I was expecting it to be, frankly.
It's kind of like exactly what I expected at this point in the show.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I knew about the show was like, hey, we're going to be doing sitcoms across the years. And that's exactly what we're getting so far.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was definitely like I my hopes weren't really high for this one because it was really like it's really kind of outside of the norm, I think, for like Marvel and like the content that they've been putting out for like the past 10 years. So like to say that this is kind of like experimental is like probably putting it lightly. So, Chris, what were your thoughts on WandaVision?
I went into it. I didn't really know much about it going into it. Like I saw the same thing where it looked like it was going to be a black and white sitcom, but outside of that, I didn't have much going into it, and I enjoyed it, and it had just a little bit enough of a mystery element to it that that kept me interested. And yeah, it was a fine show.
Yeah, so we can kind of start going into spoiler territory if you guys want to, and kind of start talking about some of the real meat and potatoes of the episode. So if you haven't seen it yet, spoiler warning ahead. So basically the show it just goes like right into it with like right into like the sitcom stuff. Like there's no like build up to it. There's no like, precursor to like what's happening in the world. Like it literally drops you in with like a Bewitched, like Leave It to Beaver style like intro.
I love
and
Lucy.
Then like yeah, and it's like right into it. Like it's like a single camera setup, like all these old school TV shows, and it's just like corny joke after corny joke, like really, really bad like practical effects, but like done purposefully.
A laughing track, a clap track.
Yeah, like all of this stuff, and like the first episode is like your typical like sitcom of like Vision goes to work and the boss is coming over for dinner, and there's a confusion like, oh, what's this important date that's on the calendar? And Wanda's like, oh, it must be our anniversary. And Vision thinks, I don't know what it is. Vision finds out at work, oh, my boss is coming over. And then, of course, the standard sitcom hilarity ensues with miscommunication left and right, nosy neighbors popping in, quick redirects to pull focus from the boss and his wife from seeing Vision and Wanda using their powers to try and keep the night from falling apart. Like, all in all, it was your standard, like, sitcom, and it's weird that Marvel's putting out a sitcom,
Like, infomercials and all. Like, we even like Stark Industries having toaster commercials.
And what was it? A Hydro watch?
I think that was in episode 2. They pulled out like a commercial, and it was like didn't it say like Strucker something on it?
Yes.
Like there was a reference to what's the
Baron Strucker
Baron
from
Strucker
Age of Ultron.
Yeah, so a lot of neat little Easter eggs and throwbacks. My favorite Easter egg, I think, in the whole thing was like in the beginning of the first episode, Wanda's like doing dishes and she's using her powers to like float like plates everywhere, and she smashes a plate into Vision's head, and Vision's just like, "Oh, Wanda dear, be more careful," and she's just like, "My husband and his indestructible head." And it's just like, yeah, don't invite Thanos over for dinner. You know.
God, no.
So that was
another one I saw was, I don't know if it was super intentional, maybe it was just subliminal, but on the magic box they use for the magic trick in the second one, right at the top it looks like a stone, right about like where the person's head would be standing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of Easter eggs and throwbacks to the Marvel Universe so far in WandaVision. The first episode ends kind of in your standard like I Love Lucy, like the videos like panning out, and I think there were like hearts or something like over Wanda and Vision's faces as the camera panned out, and then it kind of pans out and then goes into like your more standard like Marvel cinematic like film framing, you know, and then it pans out a little bit to show that like somebody has been keeping an eye on Wanda and Vision, and quite a few little Easter eggs to be picked up out of that. So one specifically is the logo that seems to be like plastered everywhere in that scene, which is the logo of a giant sword, which if you're familiar with Marvel Comics, sword is kind of an additional branch of the government similar to SHIELD, but geared more towards like monitoring like superhumans and their activities and stuff like that. So very possible that sword is either going to play it hasn't really been fleshed out yet whether sword's going to be more of a like heroic kind of entity or maybe more of a like villain type role. Not really, it's very unclear coming out of the first episode, because that's like, it's like maybe 2 minutes worth of time out of like at the very end of the episode, just kind of showing that somebody's watching Wanda and Vision and keeping notes on them, and then that's pretty much where the first episode ends. So a lot of the old like TV sitcom tropes, a little bit of mystery with sword popping up at the end. What did everybody kind of think of the first episode, our first little taste of WandaVision? Josh, go ahead.
I really liked it, but it was like you said, it was jarring. You know, if you come into this show thinking, oh, I'm gonna continue like the Marvel stuff, you know, like, oh, Scarlet Witch and Vision, I liked them, I'm gonna watch this. If you go in not watching the trailer, you're gonna go in lost.
Right.
You're gonna be like, am I watching the right show? Like, I recognize this too, but this doesn't feel like Marvel at all. And then till the end, like you said, then it pans out to the traditional Marvel collar stuff. It's like, okay. Overall, yeah. I really, really liked it. But I feel like it's really going to depend. These first episodes are going to be very dependent on how the show ends. If this show goes somewhere interesting, it's going to make these look like, man, they were laying the foundation. It was perfect. But if it really doesn't go anywhere and it kind of fizzles out, you're going to be like, well, I just watched a sitcom with a couple Marvel characters in it.
Yeah.
So, Julia, your thoughts?
Okay, I think going right into watching the first scene, it's very much like, I wouldn't expect anything less of Marvel pushing the boundaries, because like, we have seen them push, if you look at Iron Man 1 and kind of like the framework they did all the way to like Guardians of the Galaxy to like Thor Ragnarok, even like you've seen them trying to push a little bit of their horizon and kind of their tone. So it doesn't surprise me that they're taking a stab at making something that you would never expect. And something you would never expect is them doing a 50s, 60s sitcom of WandaVision. And like, especially with Wanda being able, you know, with her powers, it's just a perfect opportunity. And going back to the, oh dear, you have an indestructible head, like I'm wondering if she's not being put under sedation, but she put herself there. And the reason why she stated that was because she doesn't want to see Vision subconsciously, like, pulled apart again.
Yeah.
But
I think
all in all, I was actually pleasantly surprised because I don't think I've watched much of Marvel TV shows. Is there many out?
Like aside from Agents of Shield and the very poorly received Inhumans.
Ooh, yeah.
No, there really hasn't been. Those have been the main like flagship things kind of in the Marvel Cinematic like universe, because you have the Netflix shows, but they're kind of it's weird. They're like set in the same universe, but they're kind of their own thing at the same time, because there's like a lot of references to like the first Avengers movie and like the Chitauri attacking New York, but at the same time they don't really like fold into the rest of the universe. They're kind of their own separate entity that just operates by itself. So like the closest thing you'll get to the Marvel Cinematic Universe or like these new Disney Plus shows is Agents of Shield, I would think. And WandaVision feels so different from like Agents of Shield. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the Disney Plus shows are going to kind of like feel, and if they're going to feel more like TV or more like the cinematic universe themselves.
Yeah.
Chris, any opinions on the first episode of WandaVision?
Yeah, I'm probably going to be the negative Nancy of the group for this one.
Go ahead.
Just for this one?
I mean, for episode 2 as well. Like, I like WandaVision. It's a different take. I think I have been so put into the Marvel universe of everything being serious, because starting from Iron Man, the first Iron Man, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been serious business. There's always been that side to it, but then you come into WandaVision and it starts off carefree, and the first episode you don't get anything that's kind of like a mystery or that little bit of grab until like the very end, and it kind of hits a little bit in the midway through the second one, but we'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, it like leading up to it, like if you just come straight, like Josh said, if you come straight from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like the movies, into this without watching the trailer, you're going to be like, is this even Marvel?
Mm-hmm.
And right. I think right now WandaVision is, for the first 2 episodes, I think with like critics on Rotten Tomatoes, is getting like 97% review. Like, I don't know.
High.
I don't know if that. I don't know if that is justifiable in my book, or. But yeah, it's. I think it's. Yeah, I believe it's 97% is what's getting on Rotten Tomatoes right now. And like my biggest problem with the show is it's a good show. I enjoyed it. It's got like it's got the comedy. It's kind of a breath of fresh air. But I'm not sitting in my seat right now being like, man, I can't wait for the next episode of WandaVision. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's going to be unfair to compare it to like The Mandalorian, because that's how these are all going to go, though. Everything's going to get compared to The Mandalorian because they're all going to be Disney Plus releases in series. And with The Mandalorian, I was waiting each week. I was like, I can't wait to see what happens next.
Right.
WandaVision, I'm just like, I'm here for it, but it's not keeping me up throughout the week waiting for that episode to drop.
Yep. Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
It makes me wonder, why didn't they release this like Netflix style, all in one go? Let's just give them all 9 episodes so you can just watch it straight through and get the overarching story. Because like Chris said, it's like The Mandalorian was structured to where it's episodic, and this is episodic 2, but there's not as much substance to this yet as an episode of The Mandalorian. And I think it would have benefited this to see it in its entirety right off the bat, just be able to see it all the way through.
Yeah,
but
it's interesting because I think to like everyone's point, I think their ideal of kind of dealing with it in this way is to try and draw interest, because the first episode was so heavy on like the sitcom tropes. And as Julia mentioned earlier, like Marvel is not opposed to trying to like break free of any kind of formula or going out and like pushing the limits of something, because you know, Guardians of the Galaxies and Thor Ragnarok are so out there when you compare them to like other Marvel movies. I mean, comparing Thor the Dark World to Thor Ragnarok like is night and day, right?
Yeah.
So Marvel's definitely not opposed to kind of like the Hail Mary pass to see if something works. And that's definitely what they're doing with WandaVision now. And I think because they're kind of doing that, like this weird sitcom-y kind of thing, it makes you, I think their idea is, because it's so weird and because it's so out there, you watch the first 2 episodes and their hope is it will hook you, because you want to see how like the illusion kind of starts to fall apart and how it's going to actually turn into a real kind of cinematic experience, just like the movies. You know, you're moving from all of these like sitcom and like TV shows and these family friendly things, and how it's slowly going to morph and kind of get manipulated into maybe more of an action or like mystery thriller or something like that. So I think the purpose of not dropping it all at once is actually to try and get you interested with these first 2 episodes and start to make you think like, well, this is odd. Like, this is a very weird way of doing a show. And then each week when you come back, they're going to kind of peel the layers back a little bit at a time. Because as we'll get into the second episode, which we can actually do that right now, the second episode actually does start to kind of unravel the mystery of WandaVision a little bit more. It's like each episode, they kind of start to evolve the way that they're filming it, I noticed. Because there's a lot... Like WandaVision, the first episode had a lot of like single camera shots of like their home or Vision's office or the kitchen. It was all like one camera, almost like, it kind of looked like King of Queens. Like if you've ever seen King of Queens, like that's kind of the way it was filmed at first. And then there were a lot more like set pieces in the second episode, because Wanda was moving around a lot more. She like went from outside. She was at like somebody's like pool house or something. They were in the town square. Vision was going to like a library. They were all over the place. Camera angles were changing. It was a lot different than the first episode. And in the same way, they kind of started to add a little bit more in terms of like the outside world kind of seeping into whatever weird situation like Wanda finds herself in. Because the whole premise of the episode was that there was like a talent show going on to raise money for like the local kids of the community, and Wanda and Vision were going to put on a magic show. And I think it's funny that even though Wanda's the magic user, she's the assistant, and Vision's supposed to be the magician. So I thought that was kind of funny. And as the episode goes on, Wanda starts kind of picking up that things around her aren't exactly what they seem. And I think it's really interesting that Wanda is kind of the only one that's actually noticing the world around her is maybe a little bit off. Like there's a part when there's a radio playing, and suddenly you start hearing a voice of somebody asking Wanda, like, Wanda, who's doing this to you? Wanda, like, can you hear me? And one of our friends actually looked it up. That's actually, I believe the actor's name is Randall Park, the guy who played the FBI agent in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, okay.
That was kind of in charge of keeping an eye on Scott while he was on like house arrest.
Okay.
So I did not look that up to confirm it myself, but I was told that that's who that voice is. And it's very interesting because I guess he got shifted over into like, you know, he's already watching a superhero on house arrest, you know, so like he's not foreign to this world of like dealing with superheroes and, you know, mutants or whatever you want to call them at this point. So it's very interesting that he pops up in it. But one is hearing this voice near the end of the episode. they go outside and somebody in like a beekeeper's costume comes out of like the sewers, and she gets spooked by that and somehow like reverts like time. It like almost like old school like VCR, like rolling the tape back, and then she just kind of like erases that part. So like it's interesting that Wanda's the one who kind of has control over the world, it seems, or at least has a better perspective on how the world itself is shaping. And it kind of plays into the idea that she's not only created the whole world around her, but that she's kind of created this version of Vision as well. Kind of like her perfect, kind of like what Julia mentioned about the whole indestructible head thing in the first episode. She's kind of building her perfect version of Vision that can't be taken away from her. Yep. And this episode just kind of ends with it's interesting. The episode ends with kind of the shift in, I'd say, like time period of like when it's being filmed, because we go from like black and white to like full vibrant color. So next week's episode is definitely going to be interesting. Kind of probably going to be more of like a
Brady Bunch.
Yeah, like a Brady. Yeah, probably like more like a Brady Bunch kind of episode, which will be very interesting. I wouldn't be surprised. I put money on it that the opening like credits will probably be like a Brady Bunch parody, and it'll have like Wanda and Vision and like the nosy neighbor Agnes, and like all the other characters that they've introduced in this like little happy town that she's created. So that'll be really funny to see kind of come to fruition. I hope that's what it is now, because if it's anything else, I'm gonna be disappointed.
I kind of took that going to color as going from the 50s to the 60s. The introduction of color TV. So I feel like we've got I Love Lucy, Bewitched, and we got Brady Bunch coming up next. Is kind of what I've felt.
I can't wait till it comes around to like Family Matters and like Full House. Like I really hope that that's kind of the progression. I hope that we get to those kind of tropes before everything kind of like falls apart and becomes more of like the normal to Marvel, like bringing her back to reality. So I don't know, it would be fun to see more of those kind of tropes. And I think that's definitely in the plus column for WandaVision, because it's so weird and out there. It can kind of take these creative liberties and do goofy throwback things to eras of TV that have come and gone. Because we're not going to see anything. I don't think we're going to see anything nearly this creative in other shows. I think the closest thing, and we won't talk about this a whole lot, but I think the closest thing we'll see to it is probably going to be like the next Doctor Strange movie.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like its creativity.
Yeah, well, like I'm pretty sure that we've read somewhere where this connects to Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Right? Do we know?
Yeah, how? Wanda, as far as I know, Wanda's just gonna play a part in that movie, but we don't really know. But I think the movie's called like Madness of the Multiverse or something like that, or Multiverse of Madness. So I think that's the next time we'll see something that's really kind of like this Hail Mary, just out in left field kind of creativity, because I think everything else is probably gonna follow pretty tightly to like Marvel's method of success, which is fine. It would be weird if all of these shows played out the same way that like WandaVerse is playing out now. But I definitely think that's something in the win column for WandaVerse. I think one thing that hurts it though is it's weird. It's like a double-edged sword. Like it's weird creativity helps it, but at the same time, it is kind of odd. Because think about it, we haven't had like Marvel content and probably over a year.
Yep.
Like when was Black Widow supposed to originally come out?
I think it was last summer, and then it got pushed to November, and then it got pushed to next year.
Yeah,
I think it got pushed a couple of
I believe it
times.
was August that it was supposed to come out, and then
August.
it got pushed back.
Yeah, so we're looking at over a year since like the last movie that came out was Far From Home, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Spider-Man Far From Home is the last Marvel movie to come out, and we've been waiting and waiting and waiting with no content at all in 2020, and then WandaVision drops, and I just wonder if it was the right show to pick after, because I like it because it's weird and out there, but I feel like if you watched WandaVision and then immediately went into watching like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's gonna be odd.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's very weird. And also to think that these two shows are happening in the same universe. Because I think when you have, Marvel has kind of cornered the market on building a universe, like a cinematic universe, where all of these things are interconnected. But when you do something this weird and like try and fit it into this universe, I just don't know if it, like, how much can you like suspend disbelief enough to be like, no, this is fine. Like, sure, there can exist a wacky like sitcom filled world in this universe of galaxy destroying monsters and magic stones. And
I think the big thing is going to be how the next 7 episodes go.
Yeah.
And how crazy they get with it, because I'm not, I don't read the comics or anything, but when I did find out how powerful of a character that Wanda is, the Scarlet Witch is, started doing some like internet research and digging into her backstory and everything. So the show has the potential to get pretty crazy with her abilities. I mean, right. I think in the comics she altered the world to where she was the only mutant. She created. I think she created another world, or she does some pretty out there stuff. So, which for me it'll be a weird show if they don't press that kind of side of her. And I wonder how it's going to leave like the real comic book fans feeling because they've already changed Wanda a lot for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but there's still the comic book fans out there who are still hoping to see that side of that Scarlet Witch, of where she's altering reality on a massive scale. And it'll be interesting to see if they go for that, or if they just continue to keep changing her for better or worse.
I think the fact that it is going to be leading into Doctor Strange 2 really helps that side coming out. I really do think that, I was trying to think, like, where does this show end at? Like, and honestly, this could lead directly into Doctor Strange 2. Maybe Wanda is what splits the multiverse or something, I don't see Doctor Strange being the one like, oh, we're gonna split the multiverse. You kind of need a catalyst for something like that, and Wanda could be that catalyst. Like Chris is saying, like, she is like top tier strong in terms of superheroes in the Marvel universe. So this could be a sleeper. This could be just an illusion. All of these shows and stuff is the illusion that they've been hiding in the trailers. You can't show in the trailers if you're going to do something this big. And like you said, with this being the next big Marvel thing, this is after phase 3 or 4, whichever it was, the Infinity Saga is over, kind of need that next catalyst, you need that next big Thanos thing to take on, which it could be the multiverse, which seems to be where they're going. And I think Wanda could be the spark that sets that off. But
yeah, absolutely. What do you think the over/under is on Benedict Cumberbatch making an appearance in like the last episode? Like this is a pipe dream, obviously, but
anything's possible.
Right. I mean, everybody's on contract, right? So who knows? But I think it would be really interesting if WandaVision does kind of serve as a precursor to the Doctor Strange movie. It would be really cool to just have even a little bit of Doctor Strange, because I want more of Doctor Strange in my life.
Same.
You know, I absolutely, I was very much against Benedict Cumberbatch at first being Doctor Strange, because I just didn't think he would be very good. I have nothing to really justify that. When they did the casting, I just thought, that guy, like the skinny dude from Sherlock, like like I just wasn't feeling it. Then the movie came out and I watched it, and I was blown away by him in the role, and him in every other Marvel movie popping up as Doctor Strange. Like, I loved his appearance in Ragnarok, kind of like helping Thor and Loki a little bit there. I thought he was great, and I thought it showed him really as like the Doctor Strange everybody really wanted, like the super powerful sorcerer that could just kind of like do whatever without even like really thinking about it, you know, because he was like pulling books off of shelves and filling up beer mugs like it was nobody's business, just like it was second nature to him, and that's awesome. So more Benedict Cumberbatch, please, and thank you.
Well, I think we're going to get a lot more of them, because I believe it was me and you talking about it, but pretty much I think that, or that we both think that you know, Doctor Strange is going to be, you know, the lead thing going forward for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's going to be the next Tony.
Yeah,
he's going to be the one that anchors the cinematic universe.
Yeah, and to kind of touch on what Josh said a minute ago about needing that kind of like catalyst for the next phase and trying to figure out what the next big thing is, you know, how do you go bigger than Thanos wiping out half of existence, right? Yeah. And I think the only way that you do that is by pulling in more universes, you know? So if Doctor Strange isn't like the focal point of this phase, I don't know what would be, because we could go off on ridiculous number of tangents about this with Marvel or with Disney acquiring all of Fox's IP in the Marvel space with like the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and all of this stuff. You know, the doors are like wide open to pull in a ridiculous number of characters into the universe to kind of help build the next big bad. And I think multiverse theory is probably the best thing for them at this point. So I would love to see Doctor Strange being that leading character like Tony was. I would love for him to kind of be the de facto leader of the Avengers, but that might be a bit of a stretch, you know? So I was really hoping that it would be Black Panther, but, you know, unforeseeable circumstances are probably going to change that. So, you know, Doctor Strange, I think, would be the good fallback. He would be a good leader for the Avengers and a good anchor point, and I hope that's kind of where they go with it.
Yeah.
All right. So,
real quick, going back to episode 2, you talked about the beekeeper.
Yeah.
Scene. I think that scene right there shows that, well, obviously Wanda's in control of this. I don't think it's Wanda's being put into this illusion or something.
Right.
I think that scene with her being able to reverse everything back, I think that shows you that this is her world. She's the one controlling everything. And I think it's, like Julia said, she wants that time with Vision and everything that she didn't get. And I think she's happy here. She's trying to make it as perfect as possible. And I think you might be right about, like, Doctor Strange might be the one to break that up. He would be the only one that could get into her world to, you know, talk to her, you know, to get her to stop this or whatever, you know?
Yeah, I couldn't think of anyone that would be, like, on equal footing, like, power-wise, in terms of, like, magic especially.
Yeah.
That could, like, fill that role. So, yeah, so if WandaVision is kind of like, if they thought about this and were like, no, WandaVision needs to be what we start off this next phase with, then I think there's going to be a lot of magic throughout this next phase, and Doctor Strange and Wanda are probably going to play a pretty big role in that. So definitely looking forward to see how that's going to play out over the next 7 episodes.
We didn't talk about how in episode 2, all of a sudden Wanda's pregnant as well.
Oh yeah.
I think
big spoiler.
if this is Wanda's world, do you think they're going to introduce a kid in some of these episodes? Are we going to go into the Brady Bunch and they've got 3 kids or something like that?
I mean, it's possible.
Well,
Well, it's gonna. I'm sorry.
Don't Wanda and Vision have kids in the comics? I thought
I
I'd seen
don't
somewhere that they
know.
had like 2 kids, I believe.
There was this.
Remember.
I never read it or looked into it much, but there was like this comic arc of like Vision kind of having this like fairy tale sitcom kind of like world and family, but he like created his own like wife and kids. I think like they looked exactly like Vision, like very mechanical, and like they had like all of his same powers. I don't know if Wanda played a role in that comic at all, or if there's another arc with these two like being together and having kids. But I mean, very possible we could pop up next week's episode, and then there could be like 6 Brady Bunch kids like running around with
Bunch of little androids running around.
Yeah, I guess they'd be cyborgs though. Wouldn't they?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, so it's definitely that, and with Wanda kind of just becoming pregnant out of nowhere, I think that just adds more fuel to the fire that like this is her world that she's created, and something has like caused her to go into this state, because the last time we see her in Infinity or in Endgame was, I think it was Tony's funeral, right? Like her and I think Bucky and maybe somebody else were like just kind of standing around talking kind of like about the future or something. I can't remember the scene exactly, but I feel like that's the last that we really see of Wanda, because she's kind of like lamenting the loss of Vision. And even though everything's kind of been put back to some degree, they don't have Vision. So I wonder if, now that like the Infinity Stones don't really exist in their current timeline, if we won't see something kind of like Wanda's trying to like go around to everybody and try and get Vision brought back, but like nobody, with Tony gone and nobody really knowing how to resurrect Vision in the way that he probably would know how to do, she might, kind of fall into some kind of depressive state that forces her to kind of build this world around her. And it's going to be interesting to see how the world outside is affected, because I don't believe that this is contained. Like this, like the theory is that this is all in Wanda's head. That might be true, but 9 times out of 10, when you have like somebody as powerful as Wanda doing something like this, it's never just like contained to a small area. Because if it was, why would like SWORD be interested? Other than the fact that she's an Avenger. And, obviously they don't want one of their most powerful people like on the bench for too long. But, why would they really care unless, there are repercussions outside of her little world, because there could be, I don't know, I'm just making stuff off the top of my head, but, there could be runoff magic or something that's like causing problems, which could lead into kind of what you said earlier about maybe this is tearing a hole in the multiverse or something, her creating her own reality. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the next 7 episodes play out and kind of see how the outside world is affected. Because this will be, I mean, aside from Far From Home, we haven't really seen the world too much post, Infinity War.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how things have changed. And with the inclusion of SWORD being a thing, it's going to be interesting to kind of see how the government or the world government has like responded to such a cataclysmic event happening with Thanos. And there was like no real like solution for it other than for like all the ragtag heroes to band together and fight the big purple guy. Okay. All right, so next on the card of Marvel TV shows coming to Disney Plus is going to be The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, coming out March 19th of 2021 with a 6-episode run, of course, starring Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie as the Falcon and Winter Soldier, respectively. This show is probably the one show when they first announced all of the Disney Plus shows coming out. This one was the one that I was the most excited for. Definitely because of the on-screen chemistry between Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan, because they were my favorite part of Civil War, and every time these two were together, I was just very happy. So, but one person who's not happy about it is Josh, and I would like to know why you're not excited for this show to come out.
All right.
Oh.
Please subscribe, everyone. I'm sorry in advance. I was in the same boat as you at first when they announced it. I'm like, yes, we're going to get to see what the boys are doing after Cap's gone. But after watching the trailer, it doesn't excite me. I've seen all this before. I watched Civil War. I watched Winter Soldier. I saw these guys fight already. It feels like the Beatles without McCartney or something. You're missing the man. Like, why do I want to see these guys do B-level stuff without Captain America? And I know for story reasons, obviously, he's not there. But I don't know. It just didn't do it for me. And they didn't even show either of them holding the shield. He passed the shield on to Falcon. But I don't know. It just didn't do it for me. I'm sure I'll love it. If I watch it, I'm sure I'll enjoy it. But that trailer did not get me hyped at all.
Okay,
So-
what if at the end of WandaVision, it opens up a world that, Bucky and Falcon's going to be in, and that's why they couldn't show you as much as probably what you want. Because WandaVision's 9 episodes?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that Bucky and the Falcon's gonna go right into it. So what?
It is. Yeah, it does start a
Yeah.
couple of weeks after the end of WandaVision.
Yeah.
So maybe.
Yeah, so my theory is I don't know if these two shows are going to be that tightly connected. I think the reason you didn't see this is introducing a new segment called Parker versus Josh, by the way. I think the reason why you didn't see the shield is because they're going to save it. Like the trailer, they're basically talking about the legacy of the shield and what it means to be Captain America and how there needs to be this symbol. And even though Cap gave the shield to Sam at the end of Endgame, clearly he's struggling with the idea of being the new Captain America. He doesn't think he should be the new Captain America, essentially. And I could see him not picking up the shield until the last episode. I feel like it's going to be one of those moments where the whole show is going to be kind of them struggling with this idea that Cap's not around anymore, and they all of this weight of the world and these new terrorists that seem to be attacking. Don't know what specifically are attacking because the trailer really doesn't show much other than a bunch of people wearing ballistic masks with handprints on them,
Right.
which is the most generic bad guy look in the world, by the way. So in terms of being hyped, I'll give you that. The bad guys aren't that exciting. A handprint is, Lord of the Rings did it. I think the Elder Scrolls did it. The handprint is just such an iconic bad guy symbol. So to see that on these bland terrorist people, it's not exciting. Seeing Zemo was kind of exciting. That'll be interesting to see kind of where he fits into it. But kind of back to your point about the shield, I think the shield is going to be a major moment in probably the last episode. That's going to kind of be the Falcon being crowned, officially crowned, the new Captain America is going to be him taking up the shield and probably beating up the big bad, whoever that's going to be. So I was definitely super excited about this show when it was first announced. I think the time that it's been pushed back almost a full year due to COVID. I think that plays against it because I'm not as excited. I'm still excited for it, and it's probably still my top show out of this list. But some of that has kind of dwindled because there's been so much time between it being announced and seeing a little bit of teasers about it, and then going a full year without like anything at all. And now here we are, beginning of 2021, and we have an official release date, and we know it's dropping in March. But it's still kind of like, I don't know. There's been so much time that's passed. It's hard to keep the same level of excitement after so much time has passed. And even though I really do enjoy the Falcon and the Winter Soldier respectively in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I just hope that it's not a flop. You know?
Yeah, I think I'm at like a happy middle ground between you and your level, Parker, and Josh's level, to where I'm excited to get some, especially Winter Soldier, action. Yeah, I like Falcon too, but just I think that arc of Falcon growing into feeling that he is comfortable being that symbol or taking up that mantle, taking up the shield, will be a fun arc. I'm not overly excited about it, but yeah, the bad guys seem pretty lame, but it'll be cool because I mean, at the end of Endgame, I don't think I was alone in hoping that Cap would hand the shield off to Bucky instead of Falcon.
Yeah.
But like, I can see why Cap did it, because Falcon does have that potential to be a symbol more than what Bucky does. Bucky has been changed so much. Maybe old Bucky, childhood, past life Bucky with Cap could have been that. He could have very well been that symbol, other than Cap. But after how much he's changed, I don't think he fits that role as much as Falcon does. So I'm excited, but not overly excited for it.
Yeah, I think that is a very good point. I actually just remembered I'm wearing my like Winter Soldier like shirt right now. So yeah, obviously I'm a big fan of Sebastian Stan's Winter Soldier, and I was bummed that he didn't get the shield. But who's to say that his character would even accept the shield? With like the history, because like his whole arc,
I don't think he would.
Yeah, I don't think he would either, because the whole like arc for him throughout the MCU so far has kind of been like a rise and fall, and then kind of an attempt to like find his redemption for the acts that Hydra kind of like forced him into committing. So for him to take up Cap shield, I feel like that's probably something that he feels that he's just not suited for. And the Falcon's been like Cap's number 2 basically since like coming off the ice. So and he kind of embodies a little bit more of like this, like the idea of the American spirit and this like patriotism that Cap originally kind of encompassed. Bucky doesn't really encompass that anymore, but Sam like really does. So he's probably the right choice, but like deep down in my heart, I wanted to see, because in the comics, the second Captain America is Bucky. Like he does take up the shield after like Cap dies or something, or some comic nonsense. Who knows? Maybe he was teleported to space. Who cares? Point is, he takes up the shield in the comics, and I think a lot of people were wanting him to do that here as well. But I mean, to that point, the Falcon also becomes Captain America in the comics as well. Like he also bears the shield. So either one of them, obviously, the shield is going to get past one of the two of them. It makes the most sense that it's Falcon, but I think it'll be fine. It's the show's not going to be ruined, or the future of the MCU is not going to be ruined just because my fan favorite didn't get the shield. It's going to be fine. So one thing I would like to point out, some fun little things from this trailer. I love that every time the Winter Soldier appears on screen, he's got to be doing some kind of fancy knife trick. Like that was one of the big like in Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is probably one of my favorite like MCU movies that came out, And, you know, there's like this really intricate knife fighting scene between him and Cap. And there's like a lot of like knife tossing and like dropping and exchanging from hand to hand. And a lot of like cool stuff like that. In the trailer, one of like the hard shots on Bucky is him like flipping a knife up in the air and catching it and then just tossing it and probably murdering someone, you know, because that's how he rolls. But I thought that was really funny. And he's also got short hair. Anybody else notice that?
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
He's rocking rocking the shorter hair. You know, that's fine. But I don't know, it just kind of like was weird at first to see him.
Well, he has to fall in line. He's not a communist anymore. The American Army has some standards. He's working with a soldier now.
Easy now. Let's not start pointing the finger at long-haired people calling them communists or anything. That's a little rough. Yeah. So, any final notes on Falcon and Winter Soldier?
Well, I want to hear Julia's thoughts. I don't think she's given any thoughts on it yet.
I'm very so-so. That's why I haven't said much. I'm kind of afraid that this show's going to turn into, like, you know, a traditional, like, cop show. Like, oh, like, we don't like each other, but, we're going to do something at the end of the day together. Like, I'm afraid it's going to go into that trope of just what we've seen before. I'm excited is a little bit too much for me to say. I am ready to see what they do with it, just because I may be the only one here, but I wasn't, you know, I like the Winter Soldier, but, you know, Falcon and Bucky was not my fan favorite out of all of the MCU. So, like, sorry, but
very, very, very disappointing. But
yeah, I know.
But we accept the terrible bad views of other people on this podcast. So,
thank you.
All right. Well, now on to something that Julia might actually like. The next show on our list is the Loki show, coming to Disney Plus, coming sometime in May of this year with a 6-episode run. Of course, starring what's his name?
Tom Hiddleston.
I completely blanked on his name. Awful. Maybe so Julia, go ahead, take over.
Okay, Loki, the god of mischief, is finally getting a show. We are about ready to see some crap happen. Okay, so like, if you have not seen the trailer, watch the trailer, because it starts out with Loki getting arrested at Endgame, and where he gets the Tesseract. Am I saying that correctly? Tesseract. And it fills in the gap of where he has been. Where has he been all this time? He time warps to this really weird sandy place. I don't know if they've hinted at where this is going to be at, or anything in that general area, but I think that this is going to play with multi-dimensions, like with multi-timelines, because, you know, him being the god of mischief, he can do anything. Like, why not? I don't know if you guys, so Owen Wilson is Mobius. The guy in that, like, I think
is that his name?
Yeah, it's Mobius. Something rhymes with Mobius. I wish. But Tony Stark talks about him. Oh God, I should have looked this up. But he talks about the Mobius theory in relation to dimensions.
Really? What movie? Do you know?
God, hang on.
It sounds like it was probably an Endgame.
Probably.
Oh, really?
Hang on, start.
The Mobius theory. Oh wow, I didn't know about that.
I mean, if I had to give a guess, since like Endgame had a lot of, you know, time travel implications and there was a lot going on there, I wouldn't be surprised if he threw that out in that. But
yes, it is. Okay, so it is at Endgame. It's when the repetitive time loop was created from the moment Tony built the Iron Man suit. So he talks about this theory, the Mobius strip. So that's why a lot of people believe that Loki's going to be dealing with time and time jumping and different dimensions.
Okay.
That would definitely make sense. Just kind of from the initial like stuff coming out of the trailer, it seemed like he was hopping around from kind of place to place. Like at one point, it looked like he was like near the end of the trailer, he's riding on a plane, and I feel like there's heavy implications that he's supposed to be like DB Cooper, the dude that like the dude that like extorted $200,000 or something, hijacked a plane, and then just mysteriously vanished. So it looks like he's gonna be doing quite a bit of time jumping for sure.
Well, I feel like he almost has to because, the Loki we know from the cinematic universe is dead.
Right.
So him getting the Tesseract in this part where they go back in Endgame and he gets the Tesseract and disappears, he wouldn't, in this new timeline that he is going off on, it has to be a new timeline because he wouldn't be present for the getting killed in Infinity War. More or less.
Yeah.
But the way in this trailer he says, Heimdall, brother Heimdall, whatever, you better be ready. So I feel like the whole thing is him trying to save them on that ship with Thanos. So he's like preparing for a way to get back there. But does it just, so that begs the question, does this timeline just end up the same? Because, I mean, we saw Dr. Hulk in Endgame say, movie theories about time, plucking a butterfly, the standard theories about time don't actually, that's not how it works. So is it all just going to be for naught, or does he change this timeline and altogether? Or does he open up a can of worms and that's how we get the multiverse?
Right.
So
I don't know.
Yeah, and then going off of Loki being DB Cooper, I wonder if they're going to play with all of the modern day mysteries that we have today and just blame it all on the God of Mischief.
it would definitely be a really cool thing to play around with, because like Loki's position is like the God of Mischief. Like it plays a little bit of a factor into like the MCU, but not nearly as much as it could. Like, because he was real like devious and deceitful, and then like going into Ragnarok, he was kind of like being a little bit like mischievous with taking over for like Odin and kind of turning like Asgard into like his own kind of like personal sandals resort. But it would be interesting to see him be a little bit more like mischievous and just kind of like screwing with people, like the DB Cooper situation, or like I can't even think of any of like the unsolved mysteries right now, but like if he's like creating like modern day like folklore and like conspiracy theories, maybe he's the one rooting around at like the Watergate Hotel, who knows? Stuff like that.
And then I didn't really notice this until after watching the trailer a couple times and watching some people actually dissect it. But in the trailer, in the scene where at the very end of the trailer where you see Loki with the presidential button, like the Loki for president, that's well, kind of an off topic. That's actually a comic.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But going back to my original thought, in the background there's an arcade machine, and it is called Polybus. Sorry if I'm totally butchering that up, but it is a urban legend from like the 1980s that where people have said to whenever they played it, it caused side effects ranging from hallucinations to amnesia. One detail explains away the reasonable expectations that who'd never heard or played of this game. So, like, this game was only, like, in one place in the world, but everyone's like, oh, yeah, I've played this, like, I've seen this game here and there, and just the fact that it was in the trailer, it kind of nods off to the thing of maybe we will see more of the like urban legends being pointed to Loki.
Yeah, I definitely think that would be a good way to make this show like really fun and really enjoyable from like week to week. If it was longer than 6 episodes, it would be really interesting to see him like hopping around, and it makes you wonder like why is he like hopping around and like kind of creating like the modern day conspiracy theories that like everybody wonders about. Like the trailer doesn't, somebody else might have a better take on this, but for me, like the trailer really doesn't give too much away about what the show's actually about. Like Loki's hopping around with the Tesseract and obviously gets caught by some entity, that Owen Wilson is a part of. And I think Owen Wilson being a part of the show is just fantastic. Like he's so deadpan in the trailer that it's fantastic. I'm glad that he's a part of it. And he at one point he's on trial, it looks like. He's been incarcerated and he's standing before like a judge, and they're kind of showing him like his greatest hits in a way, like on a projector that's like showing him being defeated by the Avengers and like all of this stuff. So it makes you wonder who this entity is, why they've grabbed a hold of him, and if his actions are somehow like, work release maybe, or maybe he's escaped from them and he's sowing like all of this chaos throughout like the timeline just to try and throw people off of his track. There's still a great deal, I feel, of speculation that can be made about the Loki show, just because, like I said, the trailer doesn't really seem to give too much away from a narrative perspective, other than the fact that, Loki's still alive. He's still running around doing his own thing. And clearly, kind of what Chris said earlier, this isn't the Loki at the beginning of Infinity War, right? Like this isn't the like I've changed my ways, seen like the light, and want to be a part of a family Loki anymore. Which kind of makes it interesting why he's like reaching out to Thor and Heimdall at the end of the trailer and being like swept away in a Bifrost gate,
Mm-hmm.
So lots of questions, lots of mystery surrounding the show, and it'll definitely be interesting to see how it plays out.
Mm-hmm. And then going back to you mentioned where they were showing him like Loki's greatest hits,
Yeah.
type of thing. I feel like that they have also showed him the future, because there's a scene. It's very fast, but it shows his stance that he makes in Thor Ragnarok, which this Loki wouldn't have experienced that yet. His like great like arms wide open, like ascending the like, yeah. So I'm wondering if he sees something that like not changes him, but makes him more understanding to help out at the end of Endgame.
Yeah, because when you think about it, there's a lot. When you think about everything that Loki goes through between the end of Avengers and the beginning of Infinity War, like the guy like loses his mother, which is like one of the biggest like hits probably to him emotionally, more than like anything else throughout the MCU. Losing Freya was like a big hit to him, because he didn't really care much for Thor or Odin so much, but Freya was like, even though he knew she wasn't his real mother, it was still like the closest connection that he had to like another person. So losing her was a big thing that probably helped kind of like teeter. And then, Ragnarok, he goes through such a huge leap in character, because, he tries to like betray Thor like 3 or 4 times, I think, throughout Ragnarok. And Thor's just so used to it now that he's like, I know you. You're not going to change. He's like, and I shouldn't try to make you change. And then that's kind of like the moment where Loki's like, oh, wow, I'm really alone. And like the one person who's like actually tried to like reach out to me and, be something to me, like be the brother that I need, or be the friend that I need. Like, he's just given up on me because he knows the kind of person I am. And that's really like the turning point for Loki, when he like shows back up in Asgard to save all of the people and to save Thor. And, you know, maybe this version of Loki that's going to be the primary character in the show, maybe they do show him all of that. Maybe they're like, listen, if you stay on the track you're on now, you're going to lose your mom. You're going to like go through all this horrible crap. Your brother's going to abandon you. Like, all these terrible, terrible things are going to happen in your life. And ultimately you're going to turn it around, but it's kind of like a minute too late, because you're going to end up getting offed by the big bad, you know, because you tried to like protect your brother, and maybe there's a better way to try and like turn your life around and protect him. So maybe this show will be kind of like a new redemption arc for Loki, but there's still like so much up in the air about what it actually could be. So it's gonna be, I think the more that comes out about the show, the better we're gonna kind of have an idea of like what's Loki's actual like end game goals here in this show. Is it really to like try and save all of the people that he's inevitably going to lose, and like in the process try and maybe save his own life? Or is he just going to kind of be like, well, I'm going to die anyway, so I might as well just kind of like cause a little havoc before then?
So question here. In the trailer, we saw what looked like Black Widow in the Soul World. You guys see that?
I don't think it is Black Widow.
Are you sure?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Because, oh my goodness, there is... Let's see. You guys will keep on talking while I find her name. Like, there is somebody who has been seen on the Loki, like, filming site that kind of looks like Black Widow. Like,
okay.
Figure-wise. Hang on.
Red hair.
No, she has blonde hair.
Okay, well, this girl in the trailer looked like Black Widow from the back, and she had red hair like Widow. If it's not, it kind of totally puts a hole in this whole theory, but my theory is where this ends up could be Loki wanting to make a sacrifice, you know, for everyone, and I think maybe he would be the one to swap places with Widow in the Soul World. And then that would get Widow out, and we know we're getting a movie with her, which is a prequel. But then it would open, because it feels a little weird making a prequel movie after the character's already, her story's done, essentially. So maybe I thought maybe that would be their way of getting her back and being able to forward her story and everything.
Yeah, the actress's name is Sophia Di Martino.
Does it have like a character she's playing in the show or anything?
No, it's very mysterious of who she's playing.
Okay.
A younger Black Widow.
They've actually, like, there's some speculation that she has been rumored to be, like, Lady Loki.
Oh.
Lady Loki. Okay.
Yeah, there's an arc in the comics where, like, Loki becomes a lady.
Yeah.
Huh.
But there's no ground fact. Like, there's nothing to back that up other than just
right. Speculation.
And also, Owen Wilson's character is Morbius M. Morbius. Mobius. No, there's no R. Mobus M. Mobus.
Mobus. I'm 100% down with
this. I love that he's in it.
Like, I had to look it up. I knew his name was funky.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting show, to say the least, you know, and it's going to be, you know, time hopping. They avoided it as much as possible up until Endgame, where they couldn't, you know, and now, you know, we've been talking about all of these shows, and one of like the through lines has been like the existence of like multiverses and different timelines and all of this stuff. Like, Endgame really like opened the door for a lot of this stuff to happen now in the future, and it definitely looks like Marvel's going to kind of take advantage of the door kind of being like pushed open a little bit, because Loki's obviously going to be hopping around in different timelines. WandaVision's probably going to end up leading into like all this multiverse stuff. Like there's so much that can be opened up from like these shows that it's hard to tell like where characters are actually going to end up and who's going to have longevity and who isn't, because like to your point, Josh, like, you know, they very well could bring back another like Black Widow. I mean, they basically did that with Gamora in Endgame, because Gamora was killed off and they just pulled like a different, like the Gamora from the past essentially just pulled up to present time, and now she's running around the galaxy. So it's very possible that they could do a very similar kind of thing with Black Widow. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same Black Widow.
Right.
They could just, you know, who knows? Marvel might. This is a bit of a stretch, but if Marvel started doing like Ultimate Universe stuff in the cinematic universe, you know, like pulling in new versions of their pre-existing characters, because I think everybody would love to see like a Miles Morales Spider-Man, you know, on the silver screen. So it's just a cluster of potential that could come out of this, because like all reason and logic essentially goes out the window once you start pulling in like the ability to create and pull from different timelines and universes. So it's hard to say who's not going to show up in any of these shows, or if Loki's going to go on past this show, or if maybe this is just like the final pin in his story. Like there's so much to wrap your head around that it almost gives me a headache to think about it.
Yeah.
You know what I hope they do? I hope, with this being 6 episodes, I feel like there's going to be little filler in the show, which I like. But one trope I hope they go with is the trope of Loki dying. We have seen him die and it be a fake out, or die and come back about 5 or 6 times now. I hope they take the like Kenny from South Park route, and Loki dies in every episode at some point. And with them working with time and multi-dimensions and stuff, and like the time police or whatever that group is, you know, I hope they take that trope and just roll with it. He dies every episode at some point.
That would definitely be an interesting, like how creatively can we kill him over the span of 6
Right. You got 6 opportunities here.
They should just go wacky with it, like drop a refrigerator on him, like he takes the wrong turn and goes straight off a cliff. Like they should just go like Wile E. Coyote with it as much as they possibly can.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
I want to hear some of Chris's thoughts. He's been pretty silent on this one.
I mean, you guys have pretty much all hit everything I wanted to talk about, to be honest. I think it's going to be a very chaotic show, and I hope that none of that gets lost in time jumpy, alternate reality kind of mechanics. But I think as a chaotic show that it's going to be, there's no one better than Loki to do it with. I just keep coming back to that one thing of him saying, you know, brother and Heimdall, be ready. And I think that's what it's all. I personally think that's what it's all going to be about. Is he got taken in by these time police, whatever you want to call them, agency. They showed him his future. He didn't believe it. So there was a shot where he's like in a ruined like in-game Earth setting. So then he goes, sees that it's true, and then he tries to go about saving Thor and Heimdall on that ship. But it's going to be a chaotic show, and I don't think there's any valid thing to go off of from this trailer. It is so chaotic and so all over the place that he could open up 20 different realities, which could play into the madness of the multiverse that Doctor Strange is going to have to sort out later. So it's probably up there. It's probably the show I'm most excited for.
Yeah, And one last thing that I wanted to add, I don't know if you guys caught the very end of the trailer whenever it was like the Loki logo. Every single letter kept on changing, different renditions of Loki. So I think it just plays into like that everything's not what it seems. Like it's gonna play with a lot of our understanding. And that's all
Which I'm ready for.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so ready for this phase of just like, let's get crazy. Let's just do it.
Yep, definitely. All right. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. Real quick, there's a plethora of other shows that are slated for future release on Disney Plus. A lot of them do not have premiere dates yet, but it's a wide range of potential shows that could be coming out in the future. So real quick, around the horn, let's just anything that we haven't talked about today. What are you guys interested in seeing from Marvel's slate of Disney Plus shows? Josh, go ahead.
I would say the What If show is interesting to me because they're gonna be able to like show you the little things that if something went different, what would happen in the Marvel universe, and all that kind of really intrigues me. Like, we're gonna see like Loki lifting Mjolnir, we're gonna see Peggy Carter is getting the super serum, stuff like that. I'm all down for that, even if it's just gonna be short, just little animated shorts. I'm really interested about that. That'll be cool.
All right, Julia.
Oh God, I'd probably have to say Hawkeye, because we're gonna see his daughter step up into I'm hoping that to step up into the Hawkeye mantle, and that's gonna be really neat to see the new younger wave of superheroes step in.
All right, awesome. Chris.
I want to go with some comedy and just say the I Am Groot series. The Guardians of the Galaxy movies, both of them, they're my top 5 for Marvel Cinematic movies because they're just such good movies. So seeing some Groot in just a mini TV series is going to be fun.
Yep, and I think honestly, I'm probably the most excited for the She-Hulk show. Because I would love to see, like, if it was, I don't know what direction they'll go with it, but it would be really cool if it was like a lawyer show, because like She-Hulk in the comics I believe she's like kind of like a lawyer for like the superheroes, and I think it would be great to see her like defending some of like the lesser heroes in like the Marvel universe. Like, it would be really funny to see them pull in some like lesser known, like real like C-list kind of superheroes, and maybe even some like the bigger ones. Like, I think Mark Ruffalo is gonna like make an appearance in the show, which makes sense. But I think it would be hilarious for I don't know what if the tone of the show is gonna be more serious or if it's gonna be like more laid back. But I think it would be awesome if it was just like a weekly episodic, just like, all right, who like crashed into a building while they were fighting a supervillain and like needs legal representation. Like, I think that would be hilarious. So that
we'll probably get like a Law and Order superhero victims unit or something like that.
Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the show Boston Legal, but that's basically the show. Like, I want this show to be Boston Legal, but with like She-Hulk instead of William Shatner and James Spader. Although they can be in it too because I love them. So yeah. So I think that's probably the top tier for me right now.
Nice.
All right. So that's going to bring us to an end here on the Smorgasboard podcast. Thank you for listening. Remember to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. And we'll see you next week with a new topic. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Later.